All righty then. Here we go. Bell ringer for today. Describe the court case Bethel versus Frazer and Hazlewood versus Kuhlmeier. How can student speech in schools be regulated? There we go. So I would put up the vocab, but there's only one. I'll talk about that right after the bell ringer, okay? Also, with the bell ringers, I'll come around and check them in here. For those of you at home, just post it on for tonight. Okay, have that post. I'll give you a grade for that. There should be 4 after today, I think. Is that right?
3.
3? Okay. Thanks, Joey. Did that work then when I posted that other form?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You got it, man. I'll give you 2 more minutes to finish up. 3 more minutes. This is a little bit of a longer one. How you doing, Sebastian?
Doing all right.
Okay. Getting the bell ringer done?
Yep.
All right. Devin?
Sure, I hope so.
Is that a yes or no?
Yeah, it's a yes.
Okay. Laura, how about you? Okay. All right, so let's go over this real quick. So, speech not fully protected, student speech. Okay, so Bethel versus Frazier. What do we have with that one? Let's describe that for me real quick. What happened? Sarah, go ahead.
So like the kids with that assembly, the election was kind of like, I don't know if you'd say slandering, I don't really know what the context was. It was kind of like using some inappropriate language and behaviors towards one of his competitors, I guess, and school punished him for it. And it basically, the court case established that because it was a school's responsibility to like raise good citizens and students, that they would punish students for inappropriate or not great behaviors.
Awesome. Yep, good job. So Bethel versus Frazier. So Frazier was a student who was trying to promote his friend that was running for class president. And this is an assembly full, I think it was 600 people, students and teachers at the assembly. And before he actually gave his speech about his friend, he had a teacher look over his writing, his speech, and they said, "Listen, we see what you're trying to do. You're trying to help your friend out becoming class president, but some of the examples that you're using here, the metaphors, all right, not very good. Let's try to take that out, and then you can give your speech." He's like, "Oh yeah, I appreciate it, thanks." So he actually got it reviewed by a teacher. A teacher said, "Get rid of some of these metaphors because it's not right. Okay, you shouldn't say these types of things." Which I'll tell you one thing, but the rest you can look up on your own, just with caution. All right. So he goes up and gives his speech in front of 600 students. Didn't change it at all. Didn't revise it from what the teacher told him to do. And he was promoting his friend. And one example he said was, "My friend, I forget the person's name who was running for class president. He, like sex, will go all the way. Okay. He won't stop until he climaxes, right? Until he reaches the top." That's all I'm saying. So he gives other examples and other metaphors for his friend that are even worse. And he says it in front of 600 students, teachers, principal, administration, you name it. And obviously the school had an issue with it. So they're like, "Listen, you can't do this. We're going to expel you. And, well, maybe just take a few days in detention," I think it was, which not really that bad. But Fraser saying, "Hey, you're taking my freedom of speech away from me. You can't say this. You can't do this to me." And as they go through different courts, and the Supreme Court actually took it and they decided in favor of the school, which was alarming to many people because just because they're students, they should be able to express themselves and say what they want, right? Just because they're students doesn't mean that they're stripped from their First Amendment rights. But in school, all right, this was a a sign that was going against what the school is established for, obviously, a policies of the school with saying and speaking things in front of children, especially of lower class, like underclassmen, okay, which might and push their behavior in the wrongful ways. And it was a part of the school, right? This was something that could cause harm to the school day. Because let's face it, in the classes after that assembly, what do you think they're going to be talking about? The kids, the students, that speech the whole time. So when learning happened after that assembly, there really wasn't much going on other than everybody, "Do you hear what he said? I can't believe he mentioned that. I can't believe he used those metaphors to help his friend out with his presidency of class president," right? And that caused a harm in the school day, and this set up prior restraint. Okay, so prior restraint is just when you're looking at something, it's almost like setting a precedent that, hey, we went over this issue with the student before that student went up and gave that speech, still did it anyway, and it goes against the policies of the school. So, in some ways, yes, the First Amendment, freedom of speech can be restricted on by the school if it has a policy, if it might cause harm to the school day. How can we relate that to Tinker versus Des Moines? How are these two court cases different, what do we think? Sarah, go ahead.
Finger versus that they're saying you can't just censor someone's political ideas because it wasn't being disrupted by one in the army. This is like politically, like this was being like verbally, I guess, disruptive, like kind of vulgar.
Yeah.
This is not like me expressing my opinions and beliefs and being, I don't want to say discriminated against for it, but getting in trouble for it. It's like just being like obscene.
Yeah. No, yeah, good job. Good job. Although that, yeah, you could say he's running for class president. This really didn't have any political means behind it. You know, with Tinker versus Des Moines, we said the black armbands, they had a political opinion about a matter that was going on in American history, and they expressed it through these armbands. In that court case, they established, hey, they weren't causing a problem with the school day. There was no hiccups throughout the day where this caused a disruption in learning. But with this one, there was no political means behind it. Frazer was just saying some very terrible things, inappropriate things that didn't have much substance to it out of political means. Yeah, he was trying to help his friend out with becoming class president, but it wasn't something their opinion, their manner, their beliefs on a political means like the Vietnam War. Okay, so yeah, that's a good way. So what if this speech would have happened, let's say, in the park, not on school grounds? Do you think he'd be okay? Do you think he'd get in trouble? Tackled. You think he'd get tackled? Brian Urlacher just smoked him out of nowhere. No. What do we think? Joey? You think he'd get in trouble if he did it off school grounds?
On or off?
Off.
Probably not,
Probably not. Why is that?
because the school is not in charge of the public place.
Okay, yeah, so it's out of their jurisdiction, right? And the people that are at that assembly, it's not a part of the school day, right? It's outside of school grounds, outside of school time, so it won't cause harm to the school day. Yeah, maybe some of the students were talking about it the next day, but as long as it didn't happen on school time during that scheduled time where they're having that assembly, then yeah, probably. Good job. Good job. All right, is everybody go with Bethel versus Frazer? So again, inappropriate language. Okay, and the Supreme Court sided with the school on this one because it didn't really have political means behind it, and the school has the decision to say, hey, you know, this was really uncalled for. This was inappropriate language. All right, good. All right, so what about Hazlewood versus Kuhlmeier? What do we have for that one? 1980s was a wild time.
Yes, they were.
I wouldn't know. Oh, that's funny. What about Hazlewood versus Kuhlmeier? What do we got? What happened here? Sarah, go ahead.
It was like a school newspaper or something, and the kids had written about, like it was some school club or class, or I think it was a class.
Like an elective, yeah.
But like they had talked about a student's pregnancy, something about a kid's, I guess their parents divorced or something.
Yep.
Something about divorce, and then the principal wanted to delete whatever part of that because it's like kind of invading someone's personal, kind of weird, just like writing about a student.
That is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
But then I guess, like, went to the Supreme Court and they determined that and established that if it's like ran through the school curriculum, then like the school gets to dictate what statements like that.
Awesome. Yep. Good job. Good job. So the school paper, that's pretty much what it was. And there's a class or a club elective on this. It's almost like TNN, right? What if they were on there talking about other students like that? That'd be terrible. Couldn't do that. Yeah. So they're just writing in the school paper, and this was a club or a class, and obviously this was a part of the school. And they're writing about, well, just some of the students that may have pregnancy, but they changed the names. Okay, they didn't actually include that student's name. So that's kind of what these people were fighting. It's like, hey, we didn't include the name, it doesn't matter. But everybody knew who the person was, that student that was pregnant, obviously. And then divorces, right? They didn't have to talk about that in the school paper. How about you just stick to sports or what's on the menu for lunch, or maybe someone that got an award for community service or volunteer work, right? So the principal saw these stories and he's like, oh, why does this have to be in the paper? Come on. Like, can we just talk about some of these important topics and events that are happening around the school We don't need to hear about people's personal life, right? These students' personal lives. This might cause some issues, especially with libel, slander, like what we talked about. Okay, especially with libel there. And this was being actually promoted and given out to the public. So even people outside of the school, let's say down at the gas station at the Cuppies, they're opening up the school newspaper and reading about these stories about students. And what the heck? This can't be right. But before it got there, the principal took those issues out. Okay, took those articles out of that newspaper, and they let it go. They let it fly. And those students said, "Hey, you can't take away our freedom of speech. These are stories that really helps people." And well, not helps people, but promotes the newspaper. It's like this is what people actually want to read about. They don't really care about the score of the football game last night or last week. They want to hear about these scandalous stories, right? This attracts viewership, readership. And even one of the teachers there were just like, yeah, you can't take this out of the newspaper. You can't do that, right? This goes against our freedom of speech. And it came to the Supreme Court, and because it was a part of the school, because it was a club like a class, an elective, this gave the ability for the school to censor the newspaper. Again, another example of prior restraint. So I think that's pretty interesting, these two court cases, and how it deals with students' freedom of speech. How can we relate Hazlewood versus Kuhlmeier with Tinker versus Des Moines? How's that different? How's that different? I feel like Tinker versus Des Moines is the one that we always look back to on these decisions. And the Supreme Court actually sided with them, the students, on this. But with Hazlewood versus Kuhlmeier, not so much. How can we relate those two court cases together? Or why they decided in favor of Tinker and why they decided with the school. What do we think for these court cases here? What do we think? Z, what do you think, buddy? Oh, you're thinking right now. Should I give you some more time? Okay. Joey, what about you? How are these maybe different? How could they maybe side with Tinker and not with Hazlewood? Oh, I mean, sorry, Kuhlmeier. What do we think? What do you think? Do you want to help them out? Sarah, go ahead.
So I think like both of them actually did well. They did. I'd say this one like it was specifically through the school curriculum. It was having to do with like what the school does and doesn't have control over. So, like if it's something ran through the school, it's like what it is. But like the other thing was just kids just like involved with representing their political beliefs, which doesn't really. It's not interfering with the school curriculum, and it's not in the school curriculum. It's not like kind of like doing any messing up anything like that. It's not like giving a wrong message to people.
Mm-hmm.
Like the newspaper might have in school curriculum, it kind of represents the school in a way.
It does, right? So let's say someone down in the public, like at Cuppies or something, or he opens up a newspaper and reads about some of these students that are pregnant or come from broken families. It's like, really? Why is the school talking about this, right? It comes to a point where it makes the school look really bad. It's like, let's just stick to topics that are happening in the school and the community and talk about some of our students in different lights than their personal life, right? It's almost like with TNN. Anybody can watch TNN. You go to YouTube. I mean, anybody can watch it. Not only just people in the school, but anybody. And if they're on there talking about students' private lives, it's like, why? All right, why? So maybe let's say a student that gets a scholarship to play a sport in college, then yeah, that'd be cool. Let's talk about that. But when we're getting into personal issues, let's refrain from it. And that might make the school look really bad. Let's say in TNN they talk about certain issues like that on the school news recordings, right? That won't look good. So yeah, in this court case, they side with the school. Well, both court cases here, they side with the school districts, giving them the ability to decide, hey, this is a part of our school. This is, in a way, shaping our school, okay, and a part of our electives, our classes, our curriculum. So, you know what, we have the final say of what is allowed to be said and what is allowed to be expressed. Holy cow! That sounded like a sounded like the building's coming down. Jeez, don't stay bombing here. All right. Is there any questions on that? We good? All right. I got a video for you, and that's it for today. Told you today will be short and sweet. Remember, those of you at home, please attach your bell ringers complete. Oh, I do have an activity for you, but you know what? Actually, you guys can work on the activity now. Shouldn't take you too long to do. You won't have homework. Sound good? I won't show the video.